welcome to another episode of Super Bulky. Can you believe that Linen Appreciation Month is already at an end?
It's crazy. It's been a weird, long month, but also a weird short month.
Really short month. So we've shown off a lot of linen, and we've got 3 more linen blend yarns to show you today. That we're going to end the month of Linen Appreciation with. And some of the yarns that we've gone over before, particularly in the first week, we had the most linen-y feeling of the yarns, the very crispy ones, the very sort of planty linen feeling ones. We had Shibui Reed and Euroflax and something else. Well, we don't have our notes.
Oh, no.
But those 100% linen yarns are very linen feeling. When you describe linen for the first time, or you're touching things that are just like linen, they're sort of...
they're what you think about when you think of linen.
And so the yarns that we have today, 2 of them are blends, actually, and both of the blends that we're talking about today are blended in part with silk. Last week, we dealt with cotton blends, which had their own characteristics. And 2 of the yarns we have today include silk in the blend, which gives you a very interesting, different characteristic to the linen component, because silk is long and smooth and shiny and lustrous, but also fairly limp, whereas linen has a lot of that crispness and that structure. So the first yarn that we're going to talk about today is Daisy by Knit One Crochet Too. Daisy is a linen silk hemp blend. This is a swatch of it right here. And this yarn is really interesting. This was one of the earliest yarns that we chose to carry here. And when we saw it, we just knew it would be great for this weather, and it's really pretty. It's something else. It has that sort of cord-like stiffness, maybe. It feels substantial, but the drape on it is drapey right off the bat. This swatch was only wet blocked and dried. It hasn't been through a machine or anything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's incredibly drapey from square one. You don't have to do a lot to it to get it to that point. Like, you could get your Euroflax to this point, but it's going to take a lot of processing and manhandling, or woman handling, or person handling to get it there. This one is just ready. It wants to be drapey. This shawl up here behind Tim is called Klazina. We did a knit along with that, or a crochet along with that shawl, and we'll link to it in the description. But it's beautiful in Daisy. One of the things I particularly like about this yarn is the luster that it has.
It's different from the other ones that have a shine to them as well.
Yeah, it has a shine, but I think the 3 fibers working together give it a kind of...
Is it softer? It's less of like a hard light shine and more of like
right. It's pearly.
Okay.
I think it looks sort of pearlescent. If you look up close, it has a shiny luster, and you can see it in the skein as well. It's pretty. It's shiny, but not like glossy looking. I don't know. It's its own kind of thing.
It's not like plasticky shine.
No.
It's more of like a soft, natural shine.
There's silk in it, and the linen and the hemp play along. We've been discussing linen this month because, of course, we did call it Linen Appreciation Month, you may have noticed. But hemp has a lot of the same characteristics that linen has. It's a vegetable yarn. It's crispy.
I think we carry a hemp-based one, don't we?
Well, we have Daisy.
Well, I mean, but like,
yeah, we have
like
had
100% hemp one somewhere.
Yeah,
right?
we did. Yeah. So let's see. What else do we have for you? The other yarn with silk in the blend that we have to discuss today is something relatively new from Malabrigo. It is Susurro, which is Spanish for whisper. And it's a good name for this yarn. It has this sort of like fun...
It's surprisingly soft.
It is very soft. It is more silk than anything else. It is 50% silk, 25% linen, and 25% merino wool. So you're getting a blend that is kind of these little bits and qualities of all the different yarns. It has the luster and the shine and the smoothness of silk. It has some of the springiness in the body of the wool, and the linen in it. You can see, if you look closely at the skein, there are little bits of linen that come out that give it this like fun sort of natural appearance,
and also make it a little bit more sturdy as well, right?
Yeah. Silk is a very, very strong fiber. Linen is a very, very strong fiber. So despite this being a singles yarn and 25% wool, it's not going to come apart on you.
You don't want to break that one with your hand.
Right. You try and break it with your hands, and your hands will break.
I kind of like, when I was making this, which we're about to talk about, I was going to break the yarn at the end, and then I started to go, and then I was like, oh, no, let's not.
Let's not do that.
The scissors.
Yeah, my nephew was working with thin silk yarn once and just went to break it with his hands like it was any yarn, and just like big like silk cut, paper cut just across the palms of his hands.
I remember that.
And that was a lesson that he learned. So maybe don't try and break silk with your hands.
And I think we mentioned that in the intro, but it's good to mention again.
Yeah. So yeah, tell us about this.
That was a fun collaboration that we did.
We did do it.
We kind of like were deciding on a stitch pattern and how many to cast on, and then I just kind of took off and finished it over, a week, working on it here and there in the shop.
Yeah. So we're calling this the slip-up sack because it's a slip stitch pattern, the sort that you might find on the heel of a sock. Many people use this slip stitch pattern there. We talked a little bit last week about how, when it comes to designing for these yarns, that we've liked slip stitch patterns because they add a certain amount of structure to what otherwise might be a limp kind of yarn. And I think you can see that here. The bag feels, very baggy. It's not going.
Yeah, I love this thing. I'm really excited for the day when I'm able to take it home and it's not on display in the shop anymore.
So
it's so pretty.
Yeah, 2 colors of Susurro. And then if you alternate the colors, you could make a second bag out of 2 skeins. So this one is the yellow on the variegated.
And then it's got like a basic short I-cord here that worked up real fast. So
little drawstring. So you can use it as a project bag if you are a geek type person, and I hope that you are. If you're not, you should consider trying it. You can use it as a dice bag for D&D night, presuming you can ever get your group together, which you can't. So that's a fun little project, and we'll have that pattern available. That's a free pattern, the slip up sack. So we'll share that. The last yarn we have to share for you, the very last yarn, as Linen Appreciation Month comes to a close and we all go back to not appreciating linen. Don't do that. Is actually not a blend, but it shares some of the characteristics of the yarn we've been talking about. This yarn is really impressive, and the first time I touched it, there's something about it.
It's pretty special.
It's pretty special. So this is Recycled Linen Hand-Paint by Trendsetter Yarns. It's beautiful, and it's 100% linen, and I wish you could feel it. I mean, you can see in the skein, it's very silky already. So much like we were talking about Daisy being, it's already soft and flexible and flowy.
Ready to go.
This is that to the nth degree. It is not only already flowy, it's also incredibly soft to the touch, which is due to the way it's manufactured. It is made of recycled linen, which my sister Heidi always gets the heebies and the jeebies when we talk about recycled yarns, because I think she imagines you went to the dump. I don't know how much linen you're finding at the dump. That's not how recycled linen yarns are made, or recycled yarns in general.
Don't they use the ends of
textile byproduct? Yeah. little bits and pieces and then pull it apart and put it back together into a new product. So the reason this yarn is already so beautiful and flowy and drapey without you having to brutalize it yourself is because the fibers have already been pretty well brutalized. They've already been made into a textile once, and then they're taken apart and made into a textile again. So, the work is done for you. So when people touch that and the crisp linens and it has that crunchy hand feel and you're swearing to them, it's going to get so soft and silky, and you'll see, and then
we can show them this and be like, this
look,
is what it'll be like eventually.
This is 100% linen, and it is ready. It is ready to be soft and silky and drapey and light. And we have a couple of garments here that Trendsetter was nice enough to let us borrow, which we very much appreciate, to show off to you. So this is the striped eyelet hem cardie over here. So you can see the hand paint and you can see the drape. It's really just a beautiful yarn. This piece behind me, I think it's called Winged Arrow, and it's got this panel of the recycled linen hand paint, as well as this panel, the taupe color is a yarn called Sololino. So if we can find that, we'll link you to it as well. But I think the recycled linen hand paint is one of my favorite linens to show people if they've accidentally touched one of the other linen yarns and recoiled. Because if you don't know, you don't know. And one of the great things about the fiber crafting world, I think, is there's a lot to find out about things, a lot of materials to experiment with, and they all have different personalities and characteristics.
A lot of materials to hoard.
Yes, to put into a big pile and sleep on like a dragon. Mm-hmm. That's what I do with my yarn mostly. And then my dog gets into it. Awful. But at least he's not a cat. He doesn't want to play with it. He just wants to sleep on it. I think he saw me doing it, and that's how he learned. But the personality of the recycled linen hand paint is, I think, everything that linen can be once you've worked with it. And it's beautiful for people who want to experiment with linen and want to get to know it, but are maybe put off by the crispness that we've talked about before. So I think that's a very, very special, interesting yarn.
This is more of an instant gratification,
yeah,
as opposed to having to finish the work and then block it and then brutalize it and then it feels really nice.
Right. I think there's definitely a contingent. You get to know different yarn and crafter personalities when you have a shop and you see everyone come in and you see how they make selections. And there's definitely a contingent of people who shop with their hands and they just pick up a thing and then they get it. Other people are more methodical and like to do the research up front and go in looking for a particular thing. So it's nice to have something around that for those hand shoppers, you can hand it to them and they go, which they do. And all of these yarns have that kind of quality. The Susurro has been very popular. We've had some classes where people make the tops and nice summery light tops in the Susurro.
Yeah, we ended up not having enough for some people when they discovered it.
I know. Some
it's
people.
So new.
So the last thing, the very final thing, we were actually lent this. One of our friends and customers just finished this hat in Daisy, and this was a process. So linen might not be something that immediately comes to mind for making something fitted, like a sock, or a hat, because it's not going to have the stretch and bounce that a wool yarn will have, or like a tightly spun yarn. So our friend Harriet Morris made this hat from a pattern from a magazine she had. I'm not sure what it's called, but it's got this lovely lace top. And when she made it, she had a definite learning moment when it came to use the yarn, because when she was following the pattern and came down to it, the hat band was going to be way too large, because if you look closely here, the ribbing doesn't have much stretch, and we put ribbing on the edges of our cuffs and socks and hat bands because of that pulley in quality. And this has the structure of ribbing. It's a knit 2 purl 1 ribbing, but it doesn't pull in. So We were able to do some calculations, measure her head, measure the gauge, helped her figure out how many decreases to put into the hat band to make it 0 ease, so it fit exactly on her head. And the hat is beautiful on. I really can't model it for you because I don't have any hair, and neither does my...
And also your head's a little bit too big.
My head's a little big, yeah. So the structure of the yarn itself, Daisy being the linen silk hemp blend, meant it didn't have the springiness that a wool yarn would have if you made this hat in it, but it was still workable. She still was able to get a very, very nice finished product out of it, and it's got that lovely shine that the Daisy has. It's got the beautiful drape when she wears it.
Didn't she put a string of
elastic? Yeah, she was considering it, but she hasn't put it in.
She hasn't
finished
yet.
it. Yeah, she picked up a little bit of elastic thread in case she needed to weave some in to get it to squeeze. But with the calculations and the regauging to get the hat band, it actually fits her.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, it's good. So this has been Linen Appreciation Month. I hope that you've learned some things, seen some interesting yarns to try, because there's a wide world out there. So we really just wanted to encourage you to experiment with materials that maybe you haven't used before, and get to know why people make them. Clearly, yarn designers are making and producing linen yarns for a reason. There's something desirable about them. So we hope you learned a little bit about that. You have anything you want to share at the end as we wrap up, as we think back on Linen Appreciation Month?
I think the thing that I learned the most during Linen Appreciation Month is how much I admire complicated lace work.
Yeah. Are you ready to do it? Are you going to make a big lace pattern?
Probably not.
I really appreciate you doing that. You think it's lovely, but maybe not for you. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for staying with us this month. Let us know what you're working on. Let us know if you've tried any of the linen yarns, or if you have something else that you particularly love to work with. We'd love to hear about it. So thank you very much, and join us in September to see what's new on Super Bowl.